Welcome back to another episode of The Banker, the Broker, and the Canadian. And we have an extra special episode in store for you today with a featured guest of Ryan Schneider. And I know most all of our listeners have unique backgrounds and unique experiences and probably have pretty cool jobs, but I'm sure they fall short of what we'll learn today from Mr. Ryan. So without further ado, let's kick it over to Jim to maybe introduce Ryan in a way that more suits it, being as that Jim's a little closer to Ryan and has a bit of insight into who he is and what he maybe hopes to share with us today. So welcome, everyone.
Yeah, welcome everyone, and happy Wednesday. So it's good to be back on, and we thank the listening audience, and just want to welcome Ryan as our special guest today. I first met Ryan maybe even like 2 years ago, and uh, I went to one of his shows. He is a performing artist at that time with a show at Cirque called Allegria, and so I went to the show and I texted him and said, "Hey, I'm bringing my friend and his family. Can we see you after the show?" And so this is a great story about Ryan and just the depth of his character and his willingness to go out of the way to meet complete strangers. And so after the show, we went to this security area where all of the people that work for the show go in and out, and the security checks them. And so you can't go past that point. There's a barrier. And so we stood there, and the security guard said to me and my friends, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, we're waiting for Ryan to come out." "Who is Ryan?" I said, "Well, he is, with the show, and he's going to come out and say hi to us." They said, "Nobody does that. And so you just need to move on." And I said, "Well, it'd be okay if we hang here for a few minutes." And they said, "Well, but yeah, you're just wasting your time, sir. He's not going to come out." He said, "None of the performers ever come out to meet guests like this." And so, the security guard gave me the security guard answer, and I thought, okay, said, we'll stand here a few more minutes. As soon as we looked up, boom! Out comes Ryan from the tent, and he greeted us all. My friend had two young children with him, and he was so kind to everybody, and we took pictures, and that started our friendship with him and his wife Tycho, and we've been friends ever since. So that story is the beginning of what happens when both of us, took it upon ourselves to go out of our way to meet people, and realize that sometimes we just need to be vulnerable in our lives in order to create new friendships and just see where it goes. So Ryan has a lot of depth and fun, and he always asks me real estate questions, and we have a good synergy. And I I always know that Ryan is in that group of people that if I say, "Hey, do you have 8 minutes?" He's there for me, and he'll take my call, and uh, he'll be able to listen as a great friend. So I appreciate Ryan and all he does for us. So that's kind of the background on Ryan. And Ryan, would you mind sharing with us a few minutes, like your background, and give the audience a little bit about what you do and that kind
For
of things
sure,
in your
for
day job?
sure. Well, and let me also just add to that. I get because I do a lot on social media as well. I get a lot of comments and questions and requests to meet people before and after the shows, and I just want to put it out there that I do my best to meet people, especially strangers. But I can't promise that I will be able to meet every single person. So if anybody that's out there viewing watches this and is like, "Oh, Ryan, he'll meet us and he'll sign our books and everything," I will do my best, but I can't make any guarantees. So I just want to put that out there because I know a lot of
Yeah,
people are going to be watching and
yeah,
listening and thinking like, "Oh, he's our in."
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so uh, with that, my background I actually grew up playing team sports, baseball and football primarily, and I think it was easiest for my family because how much my parents work, so they put me in a team sport. And without getting too deep into it, I never did gymnastics, but it was something that I always wanted to do. And my role within Cirque du Soleil is a flying trapeze artist. I am a catcher, so in flying trapeze, you have the flyers who fly in the air, do the flips, and then the catcher who's on the other side that grabs them, swings with them, and returns them back to the bar so that they can complete that round trip sequence. Um, and so when I moved to California as an actor and uh, I was doing a little bit of stunt work, I saw a flying trapeze school. I saw it and I was like very curious, but didn't think it was anything within the realm of what I could do or anything. But I randomly met the owner. He convinced me to take a class, and then from there I became obsessed. And I was like, this is my chance to learn how to do gymnastics and I learn how to flip and tumble and all this cool stuff. So I immediately like dove headfirst into it. After my second class there, they offered me a job, which I was like, how you realize I don't know anything about what I'm doing here. But, I took that as an opportunity to like, heck yeah, let's try it. It's something new, something fun. It paid like $10 an hour, and which obviously living in California and LA, that's not gonna make ends meet. But I had two other jobs, so I'm not afraid of hard work. But I knew it was something that would be a lot of fun and something that I could really use my body. And I've always enjoyed using my body as part of my work, and it's very fulfilling and satisfying for me to be doing things physically. So that kind of gave me that outlet, and the obsession progressed into where I networked, I met people, I kept training my butt off. I actually started as a flyer doing the flips, but realized very quickly that with my size and my actual skill set from team sports, I was always either catching the football as a wide receiver or outfield catching the baseball. So my hand-eye coordination, my ability to see things really quickly, make adjustments, and catch, that led me more to the catching side anyway. Plus, I didn't want to diet. I was 180 pounds, and I didn't want to get to like the 140, 150 range. It was not really within my cards. So I was able to eat what I wanted, bulk up a little bit more, and that helped like lead me to the position as a catcher. And I quickly, once I decided that, it just took off from there. I trained as hard as I could, met as many people as I could until I got my first audition for Ringling Brothers, and that was about 11 or 12 years ago. So my first touring show was with Ringling Brothers, and then just from there, one show after the next, after the next. Did a show in Japan, met my wife, and then together we worked in that show, moved on, and had a baby just last year. And so now we are living in Las Vegas, working in another Cirque du Soleil show here in Las Vegas. So that's
Man,
the
that's incredible, man. Yeah, yeah, kind of
long and short
the
version.
sure the 3 minute version of how you've gotten here.
Yeah.
Well, great, man. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that and some of the things that we focus on as we talk through, not only with our guests but among ourselves, is maybe some of the challenges or difficulties that have been overcome as a part of the process, right? And so I know you had mentioned maybe working hard and networking with people, but I would imagine that there were a handful, if not many, setbacks or things that might have maybe potentially derailed this seemingly incredible, again, just from the surface career. And I'm sure there were many times where it could have gotten derailed. Do you mind sharing maybe one story around what could have possibly not allowed for this to happen, but yet you were able to persist through it?
Uh, the first thing I would say, the first obstacle was like the mental stigma of being in the circus, because the circus sometimes can have a weird connotation to it. I mean, we classify things and we describe things when it's chaotic or a mess as, oh, this is a circus, and oh, that guy's a clown. So already in our mind, even though we may not directly associate it as something negative, it already has that feeling. So me getting into that from being a Hollywood actor to being a circus clown, it's like it already in my mind set my social status way lower than where I thought I was going to be, in my career. So kind of overcoming that to pursue that was one big step. But then also at that time, about 12 years ago, before it became a little bit more common for people to come through circus schools to get jobs in circus, there was this really strong understanding that the only people who worked in circus were circus families. And so if you didn't grow up in it, if you're not the last name of, you don't have the last name of a famous circus family, you're probably not going to work because it was very um, pigeonholed for those families, and it was very, very, very difficult from the outside to get in. So those were some initial obstacles right away that um, I had to either get over or just realize this is going to be a fun thing. It's not going to be a career. And then I
Sure.
can get through. I have several more examples like through my career where those things kind of led to me saying, "Okay, cool, we got an obstacle. Let's go. Let's see if we can beat this norm. This circus norm." Uh, and even today, I'm still fighting through some of those kind of, I don't say stigmas, but like, um, you know, expectation when you meet people on the street. Be like, "You're in circus? Why?" And then you kind of give them a little bit of the elevator pitch of why and how you got there, and it becomes a little bit more respectable and understandable to the layman versus like they just associate you as a carny that's trying to scam people or you have 8 legs or something like that.
Ryan,
So uh,
oh, uh, some of the things we talk about on this podcast is just the mindset and success, and those with, I guess, a bias to action. Um, like knowing nothing about gymnastic, circus. What was like in your head on even trying to take this class and then taking it to the next level and performing in Cirque du Soleil afterwards? Like, what made you do that, and what was that internal bias to action to just, hey, let's give it a shot?
Well, the first part of it was like a curiosity because I didn't understand what a trapeze school was or what even flying trapeze was, other than what I had known about it in the circus. But also being in America, we don't look at circus the way that Europeans do, or South Americans, or even like the Chinese and Russian. They have a very strong circus culture within their country. So Americans, we have a different vision of it. So I didn't understand it, but I was curious. And then I took one class and felt the rush of jumping off the platform, holding onto that bar. And it's kind of like zip lining or bungee jumping, where you get that initial rush of like, holy cow, what is this feeling? Like, I love this feeling. I want to feel it again. But there's a different element to it because in zip lining and bungee jumping, you're kind of, you're an accessory to the rigging. You're an accessory to the apparatus versus flying trapeze. You're manually controlling a lot of it. And so I felt like I was a part of this apparatus that I was involved in. And kind of going back to what I was saying about being physical, I was like, this is something that I can kind of control. And granted, when you first start, you're wearing safety lines, and there's always a net, of course, but you have a pretty good level of control because you're the one holding on. You're the one kicking your body around to create these flipping motions. And as long as you are listening to the instruction you're given, you can do it in a safe and controlled manner. And so I trusted that from the beginning. And then when I realized the more I listen to them, the more the instructions they give me, the more I just throw that within my body and my nature of knowing kind of how my body responds to certain things that I've tried to tell it to do. I I really quickly learned that I could advance from that. So once I made that like connection, I was like, let's see how far I can go with this. And I also knew because at that time I had started when I was 26, which is not a prime age to be starting something physical like this
Something
and
new.
something new and also something that was out of my realm because I didn't do gymnastics.
Hmm.
So so knowing that I said, well, I have this time. If I want to make this any kind of job or career, I need to really push. And so that's where I put a lot of focus and intention to it. Every day I was watching videos. I would search online to find videos that I could find that might be like tutorials or that I could use for guidance. Uh, and social media wasn't prevalent at the time, so it was hard to reach out to people in the way that we can. It's super easy now.
That's
I picked up
crazy.
a few things.
In the last podcast, we talked about, I don't know if you heard of David Goggins.
Oh yeah.
He's now well known as this unhuman, crazy fitness guy, but he came out of from pretty much a normal person, but
Hmm.
now we view him as extraordinary normal. And it parallels on kind of your journey in a way. You didn't come from a circus family. You weren't gymnastically trained. You just one guy walking into a trapeze school and decided, hey, let's give it a shot. And that rush, that adrenaline really captured you. So
Yeah.
that's pretty crazy.
Plus, there's a competitive side to me playing sports my whole life.
Hmm.
That's like, I'm going to accomplish this trick or I'm going to accomplish this goal. And whatever that goal was that, I was trying to accomplish, I was like, I'm not going to quit, regardless of my hands rip open and are bleeding or my shoulders are sore. My goal is to accomplish this. And the nice thing is, wasn't a competition against another human, but within myself. And so that was better because then I'm not like trying to overtake somebody, or it wasn't like directly against somebody but within myself, and so that gave me even more motivation to like be able to push and push and push.
Yeah. Now, not many of us, we talked about this before the recording. Uh, most of us who are listening are working a regular 9 to 5 job,
Hmm.
and not many of us are really doing the things that maybe we thought we wanted to do as a child. Whether it's a baseball player, basketball player, or I don't know, um, you know, actor. How has the life been as a someone working in performance? I would imagine number one, it's amazing you get to do what you love, but there must there must be challenges as well. It's not all sunshine, butterflies, and rainbows. Can you unpack a little bit about yeah,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
things like that?
I have a lot to unpack about that,
Yeah,
but I'll try and keep it condensed.
yeah.
um, so one of the things that, finding the thing that you enjoy, finding things that you love. When I first started doing this, I did it as a student. I quickly got a job doing it afterwards, and of course, it wasn't paying much, so it wasn't something that I looked at as a long term like career. But it was something that I enjoyed, and I found ways to make it work as kind of a thing. I found a way to make a job out of it, working $10 an hour. I picked up other jobs. I side hustled. I had 3 jobs at the time, so I was able to pay my bills and everything so that I could kind of afford that enjoyment until that started to carry on its own snowball effect into to what it is. Um, so, finding the things that you enjoy, there's always ways to make it work if you're willing to put in the work
Hmm.
that it takes. And I feel like from there, that's when I realized, like, kind of that same David Goggins mindset. If that's your focus, you stay focused on that, and you're going to make it happen. But I think it's too easy to get into that position where you feel like it's uncomfortable. You may be behind on your bills, or you might have to sacrifice things that you don't want to sacrifice, like whether it's dieting, whether it's going out and socializing, whether it's dining out, whether whatever it is, you're going to have to make sacrifices in order to make that happen. And then again, it carries on its own life.
Yeah, that's I mean, the one thing that I see these these people who are um achieve their goals and are quite successful, as I mentioned, this bias to action, and also this relentless um desire to pursue what they want, right? And like
Hmm.
you mentioned, just they'll sacrifice, or they have a vision of what they want, and they'll stop at nothing to reach that vision, and they'll sacrifice going out with friends, they'll work late at night, they'll even challenge people who tell them that you're crazy, man, you're going to join a circus. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so, like, a part of that was, like I said, I was living in LA and I was doing some acting. And when I got the first opportunity to train with a team of amateurs, but there was a possibility and a hope, I packed up everything. I packed up everything that I had in LA, and I moved to Las Vegas to train unpaid, no job, just that this
Wow.
was an opportunity that there was a hope that 2 years in the future we'd have a contract. So I said, you know what? If this is what I want to do, I've got to really take this step. And it's scary. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that. And, my savings account didn't really provide me in the way that I was able to do that responsibly. But I said, you know what? I'm 20, I think I was maybe 30 at the time. I was like, and that's not a responsible age to just say, I'm in debt. I'm going to move from LA to a whole new place without a job, without a home, and try and make this work. But when you put your back against the wall and you know yourself well enough, then you know you're never going to fail. Even if I aim for Cirque du Soleil and I end up in a small circus, I'm still able
Mm-hmm.
to accomplish what I wanted to do. I found some happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And the really nice thing about it is, kind of going back to your question before, is when I found that circus could provide travel for me and give me a chance to see different places and meet different people, I saw that as a double bonus. Like the physical uh, fulfillment I got from actually performing. And I also grew up doing theater and acting, of course, so that performance piece was within my body. But then you add on top of it that opportunity to meet new cultures, see different places. And after I got my first paid acrobatic trip to Hong Kong, I was like, this opened up a whole new door. I'm like, I will do anything to continue living this kind of life. And people, like you said, you're like,
Get paid for it too.
well, you get paid for it. And the
Yeah.
good thing is when you're traveling, most of the time, a lot of the stuff is paid for you. So you don't have to have a mortgage or rent. You don't have to have a
Yeah.
car insurance. You don't have to have all those utility bills. So you can make your cost of living work a little bit better if you're willing to live in a trailer or a shipping container or a small place that you live right behind the tent and you go to work. And if you're okay with the smell of animal poo and sawdust, and like, you know, there are ways to make it work. But again, all these things just connect together to say, like, you know, it's it's something that was a byproduct of the excitement and enjoyment of just doing what I wanted to do. And then again, it works out. Everything will always work out. People don't realize if you don't settle, you go through that uncomfortable phase, stuff always works out. It always works out.
I'm a avid believer of things will always work out. I agree 100%.
Exactly.
Looking back, you're not part of the gymnastic family and all that, but then as you talk through it, it's I can, in hindsight, I can see why this attracted to you because you were a performer, right, and an actor. You had hand-eye coordination. Like you said, playing sports, baseball, and you enjoyed traveling. So like that was the perfect marriage of all the things that was part of you to become a Cirque du Soleil performer, right?
Yeah. And those are things that you don't like go into it thinking like, oh, well, I'm going to do this because I love to travel or because,
Mm-hmm.
you find things on a whim sometimes, like how Jim may have found real estate. It wasn't because he's like, I'm going to be the best real estate person in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he liked talking to people, like whatever his directive towards it was. It probably didn't start off by, like we said, sometimes you grow up wanting to be an actor or wanting to be a baseball player and you have these dreams of this big thing. And for some very small percentage of people, their path leads to that. For others, the skills and the abilities that we have, if we're willing to take the risks on those things that we do enjoy, you never know where your path ends up taking you. And you just got to be willing to kind of take that opportunity or make the opportunity if it's something that you really believe in or something that you just enjoy enough to say, you know what, I'm going to be irresponsible for a second and I'm in debt, but I'm going to move for this opportunity because I really believe in it. I believe in myself.
It's one of my favorite diagram on goals is like most people think of a goal as like you start here and then it's a linear line that goes up and you reach your goal. But the reality you start here and then it's like, go up, down, all around, left around, back again,
Yeah.
then you reach the goal. So I wholeheartedly agree that you know, to just starting and again going back to the bias to action will eventually get you somewhere, and things will work itself out
Yeah.
as
And
long as you have that action mindset and relentless pursue of that.
I think if you just go with that core philosophy too, just like you mentioned, like knowing that things will work out. And
Hmm.
for young people maybe listening to this podcast, if you haven't had enough life experience to know that, the hard times don't last, and, things do work out. Like, you listen to the older people when they tell you that have been through these things. If you're doing the things that you really enjoy and believe in, and you're supported, even if you're not necessarily supported by people who think your dreams are crazy, you know, keep on going. And there will be a point where you're going like this or going like this, and then you'll just break through. You'll find that branch that isn't like this, and it just kind of elevates you, and then things compound from there. And
Hmm.
that's the crazy thing that I didn't necessarily know even back in my 30s, but maybe it was naivety, maybe it was a little stupidity, but in the end, it proved to me this theory and this philosophy that it does work out, as long as you don't quit, as long as you're willing to like explore the things that you enjoy enough, it does, it always works out.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you know, there's in tech, because I follow tech often. There's a famous phrase is to pivot.
Hmm.
So you think you're building this app that will, I don't know, let's say Uber, for example, right? Uber may have started off as a taxi, not a taxi app, but maybe um, co-op ride sharing app where you share rides together, but they slowly found out that wasn't working, so they pivot maybe to being actually like a taxi app. And I feel
Hmm.
like that's the same philosophy we should take in life, where we don't necessarily just stop because it's so challenging. We soldier on, but we can pivot to something that's uh, maybe a different direction, but it still keeps the forward momentum going,
Exactly.
right? Like you wanted to be an actor, you went to LA. I'm not sure why it didn't work out, but for whatever reason, you kind of pivot, but you're still staying in the performance field, and now
Hmm.
you're merging all this athletic ability that you had into performance, right? So
And it
yeah,
actually married much better. Like, it
yeah,
being able to be physical, it's not something that you get to do too often in acting. Often
hmm,
acting is more mental and emotional, and you're bringing it from the inside out, versus circus and theater, and you're externally performing. And, that actually gave me a little bit of liberation and freedom to explore and use my body rather than the internalization that acting takes, So, even through that, you kind of find more out about yourself, and then once you self actualize, you start to see like, wow, that was really the thing that drives me more than what I thought would be the cool
hmm,
thing, or what I thought would be what people wanted from me, or what, these grand dreams of being a super Hollywood movie star. Nobody dreams of being a super circus star, right? I
yeah,
mean, maybe there are a few weirdos out there like me that do, but if you're willing to like put those stigmas and those societal expectations, and maybe even from your family, I know in certain cultures there's a high expectation from your family to live or do a certain career and live a certain way, marry a certain person, live in a certain
yeah.
place, and each life is
You're
individual.
talking to an Asian guy. I'm supposed to be a doctor right now, by the way.
There you go. There you go. So, and so that's a perfect example of like, you may disappoint a few people along the way, but in the end, it's you that is taking that journey and that path, and people are either along with you or they're watching you. So, and either way, like it's still your path.
Yeah, it's it just came up to me. Everyone know Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, right?
Hmm.
So it's funny his journey because you went from actor to Circus du Soleil performer. He went from a performer wrestler to an actor, right? And so his journey is the inverse, almost in a way, of
Yeah.
yours, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know if you've heard the story. So he now has a production studio called I think it's $5 or no 50 cents production, something like that
Mhm.
along the line. And the reason behind that name was, and I'll try not to go off tangent. Dwayne Johnson wanted to be a football player.
Right.
Obviously he's big and athletic. Uh, Almost made the cut, I think, to one of the NFL team, but didn't quite. I think he made it, and then he got injured, and then he got cut, and then he went down to, and I'll bring the CFL,
Hmm.
to the Canadian Football League, and he was on the last cut, and he thought he was going to make it to the CFL, and then, unfortunately, he got cut. And so he didn't know what to do after that. Called his dad. His dad was actually a famous wrestler.
Hmm.
It's like, Dad, I think I'm going to get into wrestling. He's like, no, 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 no. Try it one more time for the CFL. And I don't think his dad wanted him to pursue that family wrestling thing.
Hmm.
But he's like, no, no, this is what I want to do. And at the time, like, he was in Canada and only had like, I think, $5 left. So he had to, I'm not sure, had to get his dad or get a ride or hitchhike back to home, right?
Right.
And so his dad, okay, if this is what you want to do, I'll train you, and we'll do it. We'll do it together. And so, fast forward, now The Rock is probably one of the highest paid actor in Hollywood. Had,
Yeah.
$5, 50 cents, whatever you call it, to his name at the time. So his journey, again, as I mentioned, you have the start of your goal, and it just went, I don't know, like loops around back and forth, and all the way now to being the most well-known, popular actor in the world, right? So
Yeah. And it's just a testament to another story where, you know, things didn't work out exactly
mhm,
how we thought. And instead of dwelling on it or pitying
correct.
yourself or, whatever other scenarios you can create to not move forward or not to utilize that as some kind of catalyst
Hmm.
to find something different or to take more risks. And I think that's what it came down to in his
Yeah.
example and my example. The thing that you really wanted didn't work out. So you're like, okay, well, it's not going to avert me from taking a risk and trying this other thing that seems even more absurd.
Yeah.
That's not my line of
Well,
expertise.
and he pivoted, right? As I
The
mentioned
pivot,
before,
exactly.
right? So he used the same athletic skill and you know pivoted to wrestling and just looked inside his own network. Oh, my dad's a wrestler. He could train
Hmm.
me. I'm still doing some athletic. I can use my physical strength and ability,
Right.
right? And the same pivot happened in going into acting. Wrestling is a lot of performance and acting. And
Hmm.
I'm maybe he thought to himself, I'm getting old. I can't wrestle forever. So I want to go into something that utilize what I've learned in wrestling and acting, and go into something that's more maybe pays more or keeps the same excitement, but at a different in a different industry, right? In
Right.
performance.
Yeah.
So, Jim, your connection with Ryan is how we got him on the podcast. And uh, is there anything you'd like to add or share that the audience or we don't know about Ryan that maybe is good to know?
There's lots of stories. I, you know, I I'd like to ask Ryan just one last question because he always ends a lot of the times that we speak together with "Go be awesome," and uh, so Ryan, can you talk to us a little bit? Do you have mentors or people that really supported and helped you that you look up to, either currently or in the past, and what kind of impact did they have on you and the man that you are today?
That's a good question. And I think I'll start that by describing the origin of Go Be Awesome. I was working in a show in Japan, and we were I was still in the, I would say, in the development phase of my skills and my career. And at the same time, there were two or three other people on my team. So we were all kind of learning together. And there was a lot of times, especially in trapeze, where there's a huge risk, there's a huge mental barrier that causes you to not want to try something, or to go to that safe zone, that comfortable zone, and say, you know what, I don't want to try this, or I'm not going to try it fully. And if you don't, typically what happens is you either don't succeed, or you put yourself in more danger and you're risking it more. So my mentality was like, well, instead of fearing the failure, what if you were actually afraid of just being awesome? Like, you're doing something amazing. Like, if you accomplish this triple somersault, how cool would that feel? Like, so don't fear awesomeness. That was the original. It was like, don't fear awesomeness. Like, because that's the thing that makes you accomplish. It makes you understand yourself, and you've battled that demon there for a moment. But that again compounds going forward further. So, like, don't fear awesomeness. And then instead of making it a negative, like, don't do something, make it do something. So go be awesome, and like, that was the kind of the origin of that phrase. And I used to put that as my tagline on everything, at a YouTube channel that I was uh, chronicling my circus journey during that show that I was working in Japan for about 4 or 5 years. And I would outro with "Go be awesome" every time. And so that kind of just followed into when I would do live streams. And I think that's where you caught that. And so just kind of going back to that, that's the origin of that. And I think I may have forgotten the question,
Well,
but
are people that
We
have
asked about
huge
mentors.
impact on your life, either
yes,
now, people that coach you, or behind the scenes, maybe
right.
someone that comes to mind?
So in my initial growing phase, I read a few autobiographies of sports heroes of mine. One specifically was Bill Bates. He was a Dallas Cowboy, and he was a special teams player, very undersized, underestimated, and underrated in a way. And like, his story kind of mirrored mine in a way. And so, like, I found a lot of inspiration in that, and like the kind of like the underdog story. But
Mhm.
also, you can look at yourself from two perspectives, as well. Compared to all these people, I am really undersized, understrength, underrated. But when I look at myself compared to these people, I'm a superstar. So, and I think that's how everybody is in any industry. You're rarely ever the best, and you're rarely ever the worst. So if you, first of all, stop comparing yourself and look within yourself and what you believe in and what you care about, then you can make a path going forward. So he was one of the inspirations, just reading that book, Shoot for the Star, his autobiography, that really kind of set me on that journey. But I never really acknowledged it until, honestly, over the last few years, I've really got into more of my self-discovery, having a lot of conversations like this with people like you. I've done a few podcasts now where I've got to share my story. And as I do, it's a self-reflection on, again, that journey and those things that are really strong within my core. And it's kind of encouraged me to reach out and look for more mentorship, self-discovery, mental health, like books, and people who kind of share that same vision or that same trajectory. And I will say Jim has been kind of one of those people on the road, and we've only known each other a few years, but there have been times already over the last few years where I've gone through these really deep lows and some pretty big highs. And there's just kind of that voice of experience from an older person who has lived through these things, that at a certain point in your life you trust and you believe, like, okay, I hate to say older people, but the people who have had more life experience typically have more wisdom and experience. And if they have the experience in the way that you believe in, like I said, doing all those things where you know it's going to work out, not the people who just settle and are content and who are 20 or 30 years older than you, but the people who have followed the path that you believe in and that you adhere to. You can follow their examples from their experience. And so um, I can't say that I have too many specific people. Goggins was a big encouragement to think that in a way we are never at our potential. Like he says, we live at 40%, or we train at 40% of our potential, which I think is an underestimation or overestimation in a way that, like, if I'm really giving 40%, there's still more than half of what I'm giving. I
Yeah.
don't necessarily believe, but I think it's a very good motivator to believe that way. If you start thinking in that
Yeah.
term, um, then yeah, like, okay, let's go. Another book that I read recently is called Ikigai, which is based on the Japanese philosophy. Uh, but there are many principles within that book too that kind of guide you in a way to live a smarter, stronger, healthier, physical and mentally resilient life. And just some of those things as I've gone through this self-discovery, and now acknowledging that element within my life rather than saying, we're men, we don't need to acknowledge our setbacks and our negative things. When you actually sit back and have that self-discovery, whether it's through reading a book, whether it's talking to a therapist, talking to a mentor, and being vulnerable with yourself, that's when you open the gates to really understand what you need. And, we all need something, and whether it's the fulfillment of success or expectations or whatever it is, we all need something, regardless of how macho we are or not. And so it's not a man thing or a woman thing. It's a human thing that we should all be able to find that vulnerability in some little aspect to make ourselves better in whatever way it is, whether it's within our industry or whether it's mentally, whether it's physically, and those are the things that once you tap into that, I think it really can help you propel your career. But beyond that, because our career has a defined amount of time, typically, our lives are going to continue on until we're dead, obviously, but those principles will stick with you, and you'll continue to utilize those in certain ways throughout your entire life, not just your career, not just your relationships, not just your friendships, but through the entirety of, until you are no longer able to physically, verbally give these things to other people.
That's awesome, Ryan.
We got really existential right there, but it's
No, it's
Good.
I
for
got
people
like
that are
goosebumps.
listening. For people that are listening, it may sound really corny coming from a circus guy, but it's just another example of somebody who's not in this. I'm not an author. I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not a life coach or anything, but anybody anywhere can kind of find those things within themselves, as long as they're willing to take that little bit of vulnerability to say, look, I need help. And it's not like I'm like struggling or I'm depressed, I need help. Yeah, maybe you are, but I'm living a very good life. I'm doing what I love. I have a great wife. I have a healthy child that's always happy. I have great friends and mentors, but I still need help. And I look at, like, where is it that I need that help, and where's my vulnerabilities right now? How can that still progress me and push me forward as a human, as a friend, as a father, as a husband, and as a person on this planet that can potentially help somebody else, or be just a good piece of energy for somebody to be around. That's just another thing that I look at.
Yeah,
That's
one
awesome,
thing that
Ryan.
Ryan is really good at is in the workplace, we're all interested in his day job and what he does, but behind the scenes, he's also encouraging, his fellow artists. I mean, he has to train with them, he has to stand next to them, he has to, in every show, twice a night, bow with them at the end and, be happy on stage and put on this. I mean, that's his job, right? But also, behind the scenes, Ryan has also shared with me that he takes some time to encourage the people around him that he works with. that would be from the stage hands to the people calling the cues to other artists that he's working with or are in different parts of the show. Uh, and so there's opportunities where Ryan can do that. He doesn't have to. It's not part of his job to, promote a positive spirit in the workplace, right? But that's something that probably Ryan would not tell you or not share that, that I know about him through our private conversations. And that's something I really honor with him and his vulnerability and his friendship with us. So that we all really appreciate as well.
And I think that also is a very scary thing to do because again, I'm not an expert on positivity. I know what works for me, and sometimes when you come across to other people, especially other guys, sometimes they look at you like, "Oh, what are you trying to give me some kind of life advice, or you try to give me some mental health practice or whatever?" And in the end, like if that person's willing to be vulnerable, then they can take it as help rather than, "Oh, this guy's just annoying me with his positivity." Why does he always got to be optimistic? And,
Right.
I'm a person who needs that from other people sometimes too. But if you
Yeah.
share that with enough people, then they'll see when you're lacking it and maybe they'll return it.
Yeah. And then if you start off the conversation just with Happy Wednesday, it starts out on a positive trajectory and you can go from there. And I think that when you give that energy in your workplace and in your personal life, and also with our children and our wives or relationships, then it always comes back with this really warm feeling of being a human and being able to say at the end of the day, I lived consciously today. I brought 5% better to the relationship or to the situation, the people that I had to deal with today. Those things are so vitally important. I think that Ryan, I often tell the people he's a superstar, not only in front of us as he performs and makes us happy for the 2 hours that we watch his show, but also behind the stage, bringing that level of positivity in the workplace and also in his personal life. And that's something that makes Ryan great and and a person in a community where we're going to have challenges where people are going to criticize us. Oh, you're too positive. Why do you always say positive things?
What a problem.
Okay, like that's me, and I just, I'm here. If you need somebody for 8 minutes just to vent and talk to me privately, I always take your call. And we can't do that, for a million people, and Ryan can't meet everybody, after the show. And there's some regulations within his job, just like within our jobs, right? I mean, there's certain parameters of what we can and can't do according to the leadership and the rules of the workplace. But Ryan is always there and will reach out and you know and just like this, give his time to a bigger audience that can hopefully, when the takeaways from this are that you know that there are some elements that we can take away from Ryan and his story into our own personal life, and I think that that's probably what all of us are hoping, and why Ryan took his time today so graciously to talk to us.
That's a good segue into wrapping up this pod. Ryan, if there's one message, I know we've unpacked a lot of stuff, but if there's one message you want to leave with the listening audience, what would that be?
Oh man, I have a lot of messages, but I mean, I've mentioned a few things along the way that
Yeah.
I hope people have really kind of, taken to heart or figured out how they could apply that. One of those definitely is like things always work out.
Yes.
Another one is Jim. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to share our little secret, but this is something Jim taught me. And it's funny because when I do live streams all the time, people are always saying this in my live stream now too. And they always put the little emoji. But that feeling that when you wake up in the morning, it's your birthday and you feel like kind of special that day. if you treat every day like it's your birthday, then every day you're going to have that feeling. And it's not an easy thing to do, but once you train yourself to have that feeling, then you will be able to carry that persona throughout the day, and not in a way that like it's all about me today or I'm more important than you because it's my birthday, but that feeling of being special and being able to provide something to somebody because you have that extra feeling of zest or excitement within you. So apparently now I'm like 10,000 days old. My birthday, I have so many, I've had so many birthdays, and like I said, we make a joke about it, but if you that is one like little secret that Jim taught me, is that if you have a birthday every day, then you go into those days, even if it's a bad day, even if bad things are happening around you, you find a way to remember it's your birthday and you can eat as much cake as you want. No.
I love it. Wake up every day like it's your birthday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh,
Well,
that's
thanks
a
everyone
great-
for listening. That just about wraps up our episode with Mr. Ryan Schneider. And we appreciate you coming on the show. And yeah,
Thank you for having me. This is great. I love talking about this stuff.
everyone
Yeah.
wake up like it's your birthday, and we'll
Yeah.
catch you on the next pod.
Yeah. Happy
All right.
birthday. Go
Happy
be
birthday,
awesome.
everyone.
Happy birthday.
Let's go be awesome, guys.
Thanks, Ryan.
Crush it.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Go crush it.